The alarm screamed through every corner of Kepler Station like a dying animal. Red lights flashed in the corridors as people ran in all directions. Some were crying. Others were shouting orders that nobody followed. The smell of fear hung thick in the recycled air. Commander Jake Harrison was drinking coffee in his small ship when the emergency signal reached him. The hot liquid spilled across his uniform as the ship shook from another explosion somewhere. On the station, his daughter Emma looked up from her coloring book with wide blue eyes. "Daddy, what's that loud noise?" she asked. Jake wiped the coffee from his shirt and tried to keep his voice calm. "Just some trouble on the station, sweetheart. Nothing for you to worry about." But Jake was worried. Very worried. The signal coming through his radio was not like anything he had heard before. It was a code black emergency. That meant something was killing people on the station. Something bad enough that the local security forces could not handle it. Emma went back to her coloring. She was only 6 years old, but she had spent most of her life on spaceships and stations. Loud noises and flashing lights were normal to her. Her mother had died 2 years ago, so now she traveled everywhere with her father. The little girl knew more about alien species than most adults. She was not afraid of strange creatures like other children might be. Jake's radio crackled to life. The voice on the other end was shaking with panic. "Any military vessel in dock, please respond. We have a situation. A very bad situation." Jake picked up the radio. "This is Commander Harrison of the Earth diplomatic ship Silver Star. What's your emergency?" The voice belonged to Administrator Veltar, a tall gray alien who ran the station. Jake had met him several times during trade meetings. Veltar was usually calm and polite. Now he sounded terrified. "Commander Harrison, thank the stars you're here. We need help. We have a Warbeast loose on the station." Jake felt his blood turn cold. Everyone in the galaxy knew about Warbeasts. They were the Zorthak Empire's most feared weapons. Living creatures, designed to kill anything that moved. No one had ever captured one alive. No one had ever made one surrender. "How did a Warbeast get on your station?" Jake asked. The Zorthak delegation brought it for the trade talks. They said it was contained, under control. But something went wrong with its control systems. Now it's hunting through the civilian areas. Jake looked at Emma, who was still coloring peacefully. His first thought was to get his daughter as far away from the station as possible, but he knew that was not an option. If the Warbeast was loose, it would kill everyone on the station before any help could arrive. The nearest military fleet was 8 hours away. "How many people are still on the station?" Jake asked. "Over 3,000. We're trying to evacuate, but the beast is between us and most of the escape pods. It's already killed 3 security officers. Our weapons can't hurt it." Jake had heard stories about Warbeasts. They were created by combining the DNA of the most dangerous predators from dozens of worlds. Each one was 12 feet tall with armor-like scales that could stop laser blasts. Their claws could cut through metal. Their teeth could bite through bone like paper. Worst of all, they were smart. Smart enough to hunt. Smart enough to plan. "Where is it now?" Jake asked, moving through Section C. "That's where most of the families live." "Commander, we need your help. You're the only military officer on the station." Jake looked around his small ship. He had 2 crew members with him. Lisa Carter was his pilot, a tough woman from Mars who could fly anything. Paul Brooks was his engineer, a quiet man who could fix any machine. Neither of them was a soldier. Jake himself had never fought anything more dangerous than space pirates, but 3,000 people were going to die if someone did not do something. "I'll help," Jake said into the radio. "Send me everything you know about this creature." Emma looked up from her coloring again. "Are we going to help the people on the station, Daddy?" "Yes, sweetheart. We're going to try." "Good," Emma said with a smile. "I want to see the big animal too." Jake's heart nearly stopped. "Emma, this is not a pet. This is a very dangerous creature. You have to stay on the ship where it's safe." Emma's face scrunched up the way it did when she was thinking hard. "But Daddy, you always say that animals act mean when they're scared or hurt. Maybe this one is just scared." Jake wanted to explain that some creatures were made to be killers, that not every animal could be helped or understood, But he did not have time. Another explosion shook the station, followed by screams over the radio. Lisa Carter ran into the room. She was a short woman with red hair and grease stains on her hands. "Jake, we need to move. That thing just broke through another security barrier. It's getting closer to the main living areas." Paul Brooks appeared behind her. He was tall and thin with kind eyes behind thick glasses. "I've been reading the files on this creature. It's worse than we thought. The Warbeasts are not just strong and fast. They're designed to never give up, never retreat, never show mercy." Jake strapped Emma into her safety seat on the ship. "You stay right here, okay? Lisa and Paul are going to watch you while I go help the people on the station." "I want to come with you," Emma said. "Absolutely not. It's too dangerous." Emma crossed her arms. "You always take me to meet new aliens. How is this different?" "Because this one wants to hurt people. Maybe it doesn't know any better. Maybe nobody ever taught it how to be nice." Jake kissed his daughter on the forehead. Sometimes she said things that surprised him. Emma had a way of seeing the world that was different from adults. She never assumed that something was evil just because it looked scary. But this was not the time for a 6-year-old's wisdom. This was the time for action. Jake grabbed his sidearm and headed for the door. Through the station's windows, he could see the panic in the corridors. People were running with their children and whatever belongings they could carry. Some aliens were trying to help others. Some were only thinking about themselves. The radio crackled again. "Commander Harrison, the beast just entered Section C7. That's where the nursery is located. We have over 200 children in that area." Jake ran faster. Behind him, he could hear Emma calling out, "Be careful, Daddy, remember that scared animals bite." As he entered the station through the docking tube, Jake wondered if Emma was right. Maybe the Warbeast was just scared, but even scared animals could kill. And this particular animal had been designed to be the perfect killer. The screams were getting louder. Jake had to move fast. 3,000 lives depended on him finding a way to stop something that had never been stopped before. The hunt was about to begin. The Warbeast moved through the corridors like death itself. Its massive claws clicked against the metal floor with each step. The sound echoed through the empty hallways, making everyone who heard it freeze with terror. Jake Harrison crept along the station's maintenance tunnels, trying to get ahead of the creature. Through the metal grating beneath his feet, he could see the destruction it left behind. Doors were torn from their frames. Walls had deep claw marks. Security barriers lay twisted and broken like paper toys. The beast was hunting. Jake could tell by the way it moved. It was not just destroying things randomly. It had a purpose, a plan. That made it even more dangerous. Lisa Carter's voice came through his radio in a whisper. "Jake, I'm watching the security cameras from your ship. This thing is huge, bigger than the report said." Jake pressed himself against the tunnel wall as another tremor shook the station. How big? 12 feet tall, maybe more. Its shoulders are as wide as a doorway. And Jake, those scales on its back are not just for show. I watched it walk through laser fire like it was rain. Jake had hoped the reports were wrong, that maybe the creature was not as dangerous as people said. But seeing the destruction around him, he knew the stories were true. Maybe even too kind. Paul Brooks had been studying the creature's design files while Jake moved through the station. His voice came over the radio, full of fear and amazement. "Jake, you need to hear this. The Warbeast is not just one animal. It's made from pieces of dozens of different predators. They took the hunting instincts of a Rigel shadow cat, the strength of a Centauri mountain bear, the speed of a vegan razorhawk, and combined them all into one creature." "What does that mean?" Jake asked. "It means this thing has every advantage that evolution gave to the galaxy's most successful killers. It can track by smell better than a bloodhound. It can see in the dark like a nocturnal hunter. It can move silently when it wants to. And it never ever gives up once it starts hunting." Jake felt his heart sink. How was he supposed to stop something like that with just a sidearm and 2 civilian crew members? Back on the ship, Emma was not coloring anymore. She was watching the security monitors that Lisa had left open. The little girl studied the Warbeast with the same curiosity she showed when looking at any new animal. "Lisa, why is the big creature walking in circles?" Emma asked. Lisa looked at the screen. The beast was indeed moving in a strange pattern. It would walk down one corridor, then turn around and walk back. Then it would try a different hallway and do the same thing. "I don't know, sweetheart. Maybe it's confused." Emma tilted her head, the way she did when she was thinking hard. "It looks like Buster when he's trying to find something." Buster was the family dog they had owned before Emma's mother died. Jake had given the dog away when they started living on spaceships full-time. But Emma remembered how the dog would act when he lost his favorite toy. "What do you mean?" Lisa asked. "Buster would walk around in circles and sniff everything when he couldn't find what he was looking for. He would get more and more upset until someone helped him." Lisa was about to explain that this was very different from a lost dog when Paul's voice came over the radio again. "Wait, Jake, I'm reading something strange in the creature's bioprofile. The neural implants that control it are not working properly." "What kind of implants?" Jake asked. He was getting closer to the beast now. He could smell something in the air. Something wild and dangerous. "Control implants. The Zorthak put them in the creature's brain to make it obey orders. But according to these readings, they're failing. The electrical signals are all wrong." Jake stopped moving. "What happens when they fail completely?" "I don't know. Maybe the creature dies. Maybe it goes completely wild. But Jake, there's something else. These implants were not just for control. They were also keeping the creature's genetics stable. Without them, all that mixed DNA might start breaking down." This was getting worse by the minute. Jake was not just dealing with a perfect killing machine. He was dealing with a perfect killing machine that was dying and in pain. Through a ventilation grate, Jake got his first real look at the Warbeast. It was even more terrifying in person than in the security videos. Its black scales seemed to absorb light. Its eyes glowed like red coals. When it opened its mouth, Jake could see rows of teeth like daggers. But something was wrong with its movements. The creature kept shaking its head as if trying to get rid of something. Its steps were not as steady as they should be. Jake realized that Paul was right. The thing was in pain. The beast suddenly stopped and let out a roar that shook the entire station. It was not a roar of anger, it was a roar of agony. The neural implants were sparking visibly under its scales, sending jolts of electricity through its nervous system. Jake felt something he had not expected. Pity. This creature had been created to be a weapon. It had never known anything but pain and the need to kill. It had never been allowed to just exist as a living being. But that did not make it less dangerous. If anything, the pain was making it more unpredictable. The beast started moving again, but now Jake could see a pattern in its behavior. It was not hunting people at random. It was going to specific places on the station, places that had certain sounds or smells. Jake activated his radio. "Paul, what can you tell me about where this thing is going? Let me check the station maps against its path. Give me a minute." While Paul worked, Jake watched the creature through the grate. It had stopped in front of a large doorway. Behind that door was the station's main nursery, where parents left their children during work shifts. The beast pressed its massive head against the door and made a sound Jake had never heard before. It was almost like whimpering. "Jake?" Paul's voice came back over the radio. "I think I know what it's doing. Every place it has stopped has been near the station's life support systems, places where there are specific sounds and vibrations." "What kind of sounds?" "Low-frequency humming. The kind that most species find comforting, like being in a safe place." Jake's blood ran cold. The nursery was full of that kind of sound. The life support systems there were designed to be extra quiet and soothing for the children. If the beast was attracted to those sounds, it was heading straight for 200 innocent kids. But as Jake watched, something strange happened. The beast could have torn through the nursery door in seconds. Its claws could cut through the metal like butter. But it did not attack the door. Instead, it just stood there, pressing its head against the metal and making that strange whimpering sound. "Jake," Lisa's voice came over the radio. "Emma wants to talk to you." "Not now, Lisa. I'm too close to this thing." "Jake," She says it's important. She says she knows what the creature wants. Jake wanted to tell his daughter to stay quiet and let the adults handle this. But Emma had surprised him before with her insights about animals, and right now he needed all the help he could get. Okay, put her on. Emma's small voice came through the radio, clear and certain. Daddy, the big animal is not trying to hurt the babies. It's trying to find them because it wants to feel safe, too. Just like Buster used to sleep next to my bed when he was scared of thunderstorms. Jake stared at the massive killing machine in front of him. Could his 6-year-old daughter be right? Could this creature that had been designed for nothing but death and destruction actually be looking for comfort? The beast raised its head and howled again. This time, Jake heard something different in the sound. Not rage or hunger, but loneliness. Pure, desperate loneliness. Maybe Emma was right. Maybe the most dangerous creature in the galaxy was just looking for a safe place to rest. Emma sat in the pilot's chair of her father's ship, watching the security screens with careful attention. While the adults worried about weapons and battle plans, she was doing something different. She was watching the Warbeast like she would watch any animal she wanted to understand. The little girl had spent her whole life around creatures that scared other people. She had petted a Rigelian ice lizard that could freeze a person solid with its breath. She had fed treats to a Centauri crystal spider that most adults would not go near. To Emma, scary-looking did not mean evil. Lisa, Emma said, pointing at the screen. Look at how it walks. Lisa Carter glanced at the monitor while trying to coordinate with station security. The beast was moving through another corridor, but Emma was right. There was something odd about its movement. What do you mean, sweetheart? It's limping. See how it keeps one foot off the ground for just a second when it thinks no one is looking? Lisa looked closer. The child was right. The massive creature was favoring its left rear leg. It was trying to hide the injury, but Emma's sharp eyes had caught it. Maybe it got hurt fighting the security guards, Lisa said. No, Emma shook her head. Animals only hide pain when they think showing it will make them more vulnerable. It's scared that if someone knows it's hurt, they'll hurt it more. Back in the station tunnels, Jake was getting updates from Paul about the creature's biology. The news was not good. Jake, I've been studying the genetic profiles of all the species they used to make this thing. Some of them should not exist together in the same body. The only thing keeping this creature alive is constant medical treatment, and those neural implants. What happens without the medical treatment? The different DNA strands start attacking each other. The creature's own genetics become its enemy. It would be like having a war inside your own cells. Jake thought about what Emma had said. The beast was not just a weapon. It was a victim too. Created to be the perfect killer, but also created to suffer every moment it was alive. Through the ventilation grate, Jake watched the creature approach another section of the station. This area had been evacuated hours ago, but Jake knew there were still people hiding in some of the rooms. The beast stopped in front of a large door and sniffed the air. Jake held his breath. Behind that door was a family with 3 small children. He had seen them on the security cameras, too scared to move, hoping the creature would pass by. The Warbeast raised one massive claw. It could cut through the door in seconds. Jake prepared to jump down from the tunnel and try to distract it, even though he knew his small weapon would be useless. But the claw stopped just inches from the door. The beast tilted its head, listening. From behind the door came the soft sound of a baby crying. The creature's glowing red eyes seemed to dim for a moment. Then it did something that shocked Jake completely. It moved away from the door. It turned around and walked in the opposite direction, leaving the family safe. Jake's radio crackled with Paul's voice. Jake, are you seeing this? The creature just passed 3 opportunities to attack civilians. It's not acting like a predator at all. Then, what is it acting like? Emma's voice came over the radio before Paul could answer. It's acting like a lost animal that doesn't want to hurt babies. Daddy, I think it knows the difference between grown-ups and children. Jake thought about his daughter's words. The security reports had said the beast killed 3 guards. All adults, all armed, all trying to hurt it, but it had not harmed a single civilian even when it had the chance. Paul, what did the genetic records say about parental instincts in the species they used? Paul was quiet for a moment while he checked the files. Jake, this is interesting. Most of the predator species they used actually have strong protective instincts toward young animals, even toward young of other species. You mean it might see children as something to protect, rather than hunt? It's possible. The genetic programming for protecting young is very deep in most mammals. Maybe even the Zorthak could not completely remove it. Emma had been listening to the whole conversation. Her small voice came over the radio, full of excitement. Daddy, that means it's not really a monster at all. It's just a hurt animal that needs help. Lisa tried to be the voice of reason. Emma, honey, even hurt animals can be dangerous. This thing is still 12 feet tall with claws that can cut through metal. But Lisa, remember what happened with the crystal spider on Vega Station? Everyone said it was dangerous, but it was just trying to build a nest for its babies. When we helped it find a safe place, it became gentle. Jake remembered that day. The station security had wanted to kill the spider, but Emma had insisted it was just scared. They had helped relocate the creature to a safer area, and it had never caused trouble again. But this was different. The Warbeast was not just any animal. It was a weapon designed by an empire that conquered worlds. The creature had moved to a new section of the station. Jake followed through the maintenance tunnels, staying well above its reach. The beast was now in the central plaza, a large open area with artificial trees and a small waterfall. It was the closest thing to nature that existed on the station. The Warbeast stopped in the center of the plaza and sat down heavily. For the first time since Jake had been watching it, the creature seemed to relax. It closed its glowing red eyes and tilted its head toward the sound of the artificial waterfall. Paul, are you getting readings on the creature's stress levels? Yes, and Jake, they just dropped significantly. Whatever that plaza reminds it of, it's having a calming effect. Emma's voice came over the radio again. It likes the water sounds. Animals always feel safer near water. That's where they know they can drink and rest. Jake watched the massive creature sit peacefully among the fake trees. For a few minutes it was not a weapon or a monster. It was just a tired animal resting in a place that felt safe. But the peace did not last long. The neural implants under its scales began sparking again, sending jolts of pain through its body. The creature's eyes snapped open, and it let out another roar of agony. The pain was getting worse. Jake could see that the implants were failing faster now. Soon, they would stop working completely, and then no one knew what would happen. Daddy. Emma's voice was sad now. The big animal is really hurt, can't we help it? Sweetheart, I don't know how. We don't have the medical equipment to fix those implants. Maybe we don't need to fix them. Maybe we just need to be nice to it until the hurt stops. Lisa looked at the little girl with amazement. Emma, what do you mean? Well, when I'm hurt or scared, Daddy doesn't try to fix everything right away. He just sits with me and makes sure I know I'm not alone. Maybe that's what the big animal needs too. Jake felt his chest tighten. His daughter was talking about approaching the most dangerous creature in the galaxy not with weapons or strategy, but with kindness. It was the most terrifying and beautiful idea he had ever heard. On the security screen, they could see evacuation ships starting to arrive at the station. Help was coming, but it would take time to get everyone to safety. And the Warbeast was getting more unstable with each passing hour. Emma pressed her face against the ship's window, looking toward the station. Daddy, I think the big animal just wants someone to not be afraid of it. All its life, everyone has been scared. Maybe if just one person wasn't scared, it would remember how to be gentle. Jake closed his eyes. His 6-year-old daughter wanted to teach him about courage and compassion, and the worst part was she might be right. The evacuation was failing. 3 hours had passed since the Warbeast broke free, and hundreds of families were still trapped in the residential sections. Every time the evacuation teams tried to move people to the escape pods, the creature would sense the movement and change direction. Jake Harrison stood in the station's command center with Administrator Veltar and the security chief, a tough woman named Captain Stone. Everyone was tired and running out of ideas. The beast was not acting like the mindless killer they had expected, but it was still blocking every attempt to get people to safety. Commander Harrison, Captain Stone said, pointing to a map of the station. We've tried everything. Distraction, tactics, sonic barriers, even flooding some corridors with sleeping gas, nothing works. The creature seems to know exactly where we don't want it to go. Jake studied the map. Emma had been right about many things so far. Maybe she was right about this too. What if it's not trying to block us? What if it's trying to stay close to the civilians because it feels safer around them? That's impossible, Captain Stone replied. It's a weapon. Weapons don't feel safe. Veltar's gray face was wrinkled with worry. Commander, we have reports that the creature's condition is getting worse. The neural implants are failing completely. Our medical staff says that when they shut down entirely, the genetic instabilities will kill it within hours. And until then? Jake asked. Until then, the pain will drive it completely mad. It will attack anything that moves. Back on Jake's ship, Emma was drawing pictures while Lisa monitored the communications. The little girl had drawn the Warbeast sitting peacefully in the station's garden, surrounded by flowers and small animals. In her picture, the creature looked gentle and sad. Emma, Lisa said, you know your daddy is trying to help the big animal, right? I know, but the grown-ups are still thinking about it wrong. What do you mean? Emma put down her crayon and looked at Lisa with serious eyes. They keep calling it a weapon, but weapons don't cry. Weapons don't try to find safe places to rest. Weapons don't walk away from babies. Paul Brooks had been working frantically to find some way to remove or repair the failing implants. His voice came over the radio, full of frustration. Jake, I've gone through every medical file on the station. We don't have the equipment to fix these implants. The Zorthak technology is too advanced. What about removing them completely? Jake asked. That would kill it instantly. The implants are the only thing keeping its mixed genetics from destroying each other. Emma had been listening to the conversation. She walked over to the radio and spoke in her clear, young voice. What if we don't try to fix the implants? What if we just make sure it's not alone when they stop working? The adults were quiet for a moment. Finally, Jake's voice came back over the radio. Emma, what are you thinking? Well, when animals are really sick and going to die, they don't want to be by themselves. They want to be somewhere that feels safe with someone who cares about them. Maybe the big animal just wants the same thing. Lisa looked at the little girl with amazement. Emma, are you saying we should stay with it while it dies? Yes. So it knows someone cares. So it's not scared at the end. Jake felt his heart breaking. His daughter was talking about showing mercy to a creature that everyone else saw as a monster. She was talking about being brave in a way that had nothing to do with fighting or weapons. But there was a problem. The creature was still dangerous, even if it did not mean to be. One swipe of its claws could kill a person by accident. One step from its massive feet could crush someone who got too close. Emma, Jake said gently over the radio. That's a beautiful idea, sweetheart. But it's too dangerous. Even if the creature doesn't want to hurt anyone, it's too big and too strong. But Daddy, remember the story you used to tell me about the lion with the thorn in its paw? The mouse wasn't afraid because it knew the lion was just in pain. Jake remembered the old fable. A tiny mouse had helped a mighty lion by removing a thorn from its foot. Later, the lion had saved the mouse's life because it remembered the kindness. That's just a story, Emma. But maybe stories are just things that haven't happened yet. Jake was about to explain why fairy tales were different from real life when Paul's voice broke in over the radio, urgent and excited. Jake, something's happening. The creature just did something very strange. What? It went back to the nursery door where the children are hiding. But instead of trying to get in, it laid down in front of the door. It's not moving, it's just lying there like a guard dog. Jake ran to the nearest security monitor. Paul was right. The massive Warbeast was stretched out in front of the nursery entrance, its head resting on its front paws. Its glowing eyes were dim and tired, but they were focused on the corridor beyond, watching for any threat that might approach the children. It's protecting them, Jake whispered. Emma's voice came over the radio, filled with excitement. See, Daddy, it's not a monster, it's a guardian. It just wants to make sure the babies are safe. Captain Stone's voice crackled over the communications system. "Commander Harrison, this might be our chance. If the creature is focused on staying in one place, we might be able to evacuate the other sections." But as they watched, the Warbeast began to convulse. The neural implants were sparking more frequently now, sending waves of agony through its massive body. It tried to stay quiet, not wanting to frighten the children behind the door, but small whimpers of pain escaped from its throat. "The implants are failing faster," Paul reported. "At this rate, it has maybe an hour before complete shutdown." Jake made a decision that surprised everyone, including himself. "I'm going to the station." "Jake, no." Lisa's voice was sharp with worry. "It's too dangerous. Someone needs to be with it." "Emma's right. No creature should die alone and afraid." "Then I'm coming too," Emma's small voice said. "Absolutely not." "Daddy, it won't hurt me. Animals can tell when someone is trying to help them. Please. I want to say goodbye to it properly." Jake closed his eyes. Every instinct he had as a father told him to keep his daughter as far away from the Warbeast as possible. But every instinct he had as a human being told him that Emma might be the only person who could give this creature what it needed in its final hour. "Emma, this is not a game. This is not like the other animals we've helped. If I take you to see this creature, you have to promise me you'll do exactly what I say." "I promise, Daddy." Jake looked at Lisa and Paul through the ship's view screen. They both looked worried, but they also looked understanding. They had seen Emma work magic with frightened animals before. "All right," Jake said finally. "But we do." This carefully. Very carefully. As they prepared to leave the ship, Emma picked up her drawing of the Warbeast in the garden. "I want to show it this picture, Daddy, so it knows that someone sees it as beautiful." Jake looked at his daughter's artwork. In her innocent eyes, she had drawn the galaxy's most feared weapon as a gentle creature deserving of love. Maybe that was exactly what the universe needed more of. Maybe that was what made humans special. Maybe that was why a little girl's kindness could succeed where all the weapons and strategies had failed. Jake Harrison walked through the empty corridors of Kepler Station with his daughter Emma beside him. The little girl held her drawing in one hand and her father's hand in the other. She was not afraid, even though they were walking toward the most dangerous creature in the galaxy. The hallways were silent except for the distant hum of the life support systems. Everyone else had either evacuated or was hiding behind locked doors. Jake's heart pounded with each step, but Emma walked calmly as if they were going to visit a friend. "Daddy," Emma whispered. "Can you hear it?" Jake listened carefully. At first, he only heard the normal sounds of the station. Then he caught it. A low, sad sound coming from the direction of the nursery. It was not the roar of an angry beast. It was the sound of something in terrible pain trying to stay quiet. "It's trying not to scare the children," Emma said softly. "Even when it hurts so much." They turned the corner and saw the Warbeast for the first time up close. Jake's breath caught in his throat. The creature was even more massive than he had imagined. Its black scales gleamed under the corridor lights. Its claws were longer than Jake's fingers. But it was lying on its side now, breathing heavily, and Jake could see that Emma was right. It was dying. The neural implants under its scales were sparking constantly now, sending jolts of electricity through its body. Each spark made the creature twitch and whimper, but it did not move away from the nursery door. Even in its agony, it was still trying to protect the children inside. Emma let go of her father's hand and took a step forward. "Emma, wait," Jake whispered urgently, but the little girl was not listening to fear anymore. She was listening to her heart. She walked slowly toward the massive creature, her small feet making soft sounds on the metal floor. The Warbeast's glowing red eyes opened when it heard her approaching. For a moment, Jake thought it might attack. Every muscle in his body tensed, ready to throw himself between his daughter and those terrible claws. But the creature did not move to attack. Instead, its eyes grew wide with something that looked almost like surprise. It had never seen a human child approach it without fear. It had never seen anyone approach it with kindness. Emma stopped about 10 feet away from the beast and sat down on the floor. She was now at eye level with the creature's massive head. She held up her drawing so it could see. "I drew a picture of you," she said in her clear, gentle voice. "You're in a beautiful garden with flowers and little animals. That's where you belong. Not in a place where people are scared of you." The Warbeast stared at the drawing. Its eyes, which had always glowed with anger or pain, seemed to soften. Jake realized that no one had ever shown this creature anything beautiful before. No one had ever imagined it in a place of peace. "I know you hurt," Emma continued, her voice full of compassion. "The sparky things under your skin are making you feel bad. But you don't have to be scared anymore. I'm here with you." Another wave of pain hit the creature as the implant sent more electrical surges through its nervous system. It let out a low moan, but it did not take its eyes off Emma. The little girl stood up and took another step closer. "Emma, please be careful," Jake whispered. "It's okay, Daddy. Look at its eyes. They're not angry anymore. They're just tired." Emma was right. The creature's eyes had changed. The fierce red glow was fading, replaced by something Jake had never expected to see. In a weapon designed for killing, the eyes now held intelligence, sadness, and something that looked almost like gratitude. "You've been so brave," Emma said to the creature. "You've been protecting the children even when you feel sick. That makes you a hero, not a monster." The word hero seemed to have an effect on the Warbeast. It lifted its massive head slightly as if hearing something it had never been called before. Its whole life, it had been called a weapon, a killer, a beast, but never a hero. Emma took another step forward. She was now close enough to touch the creature if she reached out her hand. Jake's every instinct screamed at him to pull his daughter back, but he could see something amazing happening. The creature was becoming calmer with each word Emma spoke. "I know you're different from other animals," Emma said. "You were made by people who didn't understand that every living thing wants to be loved. But I understand. And I think you're beautiful just the way you are." The Warbeast lowered its head until it was resting on the floor just a few feet from Emma. The sparking from its implants was getting worse, but somehow the creature seemed more peaceful than it had been all day. Emma looked back at her father. "Daddy, I think it wants me to touch it. Is that okay?" Jake wanted to say no. Every part of his mind told him this was too dangerous, but looking at his daughter's face and seeing the trust in the creature's eyes, he realized that sometimes the most important moments in life required the most courage. "Be very gentle," he whispered. Emma reached out her small hand and placed it softly on the creature's snout. The Warbeast's eyes closed at the touch. For the first time in its entire existence, it was experiencing gentle contact from another living being. Not pain, not commands, not fear, just kindness. "You're so soft," Emma said with wonder. "Your scales feel like smooth stones from the beach." The creature made a sound that Jake had never heard before. It was not a roar or a growl. It was almost like purring. The galaxy's most feared weapon was purring under the gentle touch of a 6-year-old girl. "Emma," Jake said softly, "tell it what you told me, about sitting down." Emma smiled and looked into the creature's fading eyes. "You've been standing and fighting for so long. You must be so tired. Why don't you rest now? Just sit down and let all the hurt go away." The words were not a command. They were an invitation. An invitation to finally stop fighting, stop hurting, stop being afraid. The Warbeast looked at Emma for a long moment, and Jake could swear he saw understanding in those ancient, tired eyes. Slowly, carefully, the massive creature shifted its position. It sat up, then settled back on its haunches in a sitting position just as Emma had suggested. The movement was gentle and controlled, despite the pain from the failing implants. "That's good," Emma said, stroking the creature's snout. "You're safe now. No one is going to hurt you anymore. No one is going to make you fight anymore." The neural implants gave one final surge of electricity, then went dark. The Warbeast's body shuddered once, and Jake thought it might collapse, but instead, something miraculous happened. As the painful implants shut down, the creature's eyes seemed to clear. For the first time in its life, It was free from the artificial controls that had shaped its behavior. And in that moment of freedom, it chose to remain exactly where it was, sitting peacefully, being petted by a human child who saw it not as a weapon but as a living being deserving of love. The creature's breathing became slower and more peaceful. The red glow faded completely from its eyes, replaced by a soft, natural color. It was dying, but it was dying with dignity, surrounded by kindness instead of fear. Emma continued to stroke its head gently. "You're a good creature," she whispered. "You protected the children. You were brave and strong and good. Thank you for being my friend." The Warbeast's eyes closed one final time. Its massive body relaxed completely, and with a soft sigh, the most feared weapon in the galaxy passed away peacefully, comforted by the gentle touch of a little girl who had seen its true nature. In the silence that followed, Jake realized that his daughter had accomplished something that would be remembered throughout the galaxy. She had proven that even the most frightening creature could be reached with simple compassion. She had shown that sometimes the greatest victories came not from strength or weapons, but from the courage to see beyond fear and offer kindness to those who needed it most. The Warbeast had bowed to no one in its lifetime of battles, but in its final moments, it had found peace through the gentle wisdom of a human child who simply understood that every living thing deserved to be loved.